Welcome back to another episode of Cambo Kitchen, everybody. Today we're going to make Grandma's spaghetti, a very delicious and unconventional pasta recipe. So start off by using some parsley. We're just using the stems mainly, so soak the leaves. We're going to chop a little bit of those up later, but you want those stems, and you're going to tie a sachet. We're also going to add a little bit of thyme leaf. So I'm going to tie some thyme in with those parsley stems, and I'm going to set them aside. Now we're going to cut up some portobello mushrooms. For these portobello mushrooms, you're going to remove the stem, and then you're going to want to scrape out the gills. The gills will make the sauce turn really, really black. So this just takes an extra couple minutes. Scrape it as well as you can. It doesn't have to be perfect. And continue this process with all of your mushrooms. Now chop up your mushrooms finely. It doesn't have to be really, really fine. I just cut across and then just give it a nice quick chop. You can use a food processor if you'd like. You just want them to be pretty small, bite size, a little bit smaller than bite size really. I like to add in some dried mushrooms. These are dried porcinis. You can use any kind of dried mushroom, or you can even leave this out. They're really hard to cut with a knife, so I use scissors. Add your dried mushrooms into your portobellos. Chop up an onion. I'm using a large sweet onion, and I just want to use the whole thing, so I'm just chopping across one way and across the other, and it's good to go. It doesn't have to be perfect. This is a rustic recipe. Trust me, Grandma didn't spend hours finely mincing an onion. She just went nice and quick. Now we're going to chop up a whole head of garlic. Through the beauty of editing, I was able to peel this in record time. Now chop it up with a knife as fine as possible. You want to make sure that you chop it fine because the garlic does not shrink after it's cooked. You're still going to see those little bits of garlic in that sauce when you're done cooking it, so make sure you chop it finely. Now we're going to open a can of tomatoes. I use San Marzano tomatoes, and also I use a small can of tomato paste. For the San Marzano tomatoes, we're going to add our tomatoes to a blender, and we're just going to pulse. Just pulse until it's pureed. It doesn't need to be super fine. Now for the meat, we're using flap meat. Flap meat is very dark in flavor, very rich, very marbled, and also very chewy. So we're going to cut it into smaller pieces. We're going to season it heavily with salt and pepper, and we're going to roast it in a pan. And you can see that dark color is going to just have that real meaty flavor that other pieces of meat don't quite have. Flat meat comes from the bottom sirloin, and it's one of those Depression era cuts that's really cheap, really flavorful, and Grandma always used it. Now we're going to sear it in a pan just to develop those flavors. You don't need to get a really, really dark crust, but do remember that color is flavor. So you do want to roast up your meat, get a little bit of color on it, give it a little Maillard reaction, and just get those nice flavors working. So you can see that pan is starting to scorch just a little bit. Get rid of that oil, add a little fresh oil, add your onions, and add a couple tablespoons of water, and that's going to prevent the scorching from happening any further. So sweat your onions, add your mushrooms, sweat your mushrooms, get the water out of your mushrooms. That kind of enhances the flavor. Now we're going to add our garlic. So add your chopped garlic, cook it for a few minutes until it's nice and fragrant, translucent, soft. That's beautiful. Now we're going to add our tomato paste. Now for tomato paste, I like to cook it out for about 5 minutes. It does like to scorch, so make sure you stir it vigorously. If it starts to stick, go ahead and add a little bit of water. That always helps. So cook out your tomato paste. Now we're going to add our pureed tomatoes, and we're going to add equal parts water. So I added a can of pureed tomatoes and a can of water. Now we're going to add a secret ingredient. The secret ingredient is Lawry spaghetti sauce seasoning. It's basically a bouillon cube filled with umami. It is delicious. Add your sachet, and now we're going to take our meat, drain the juice into the sauce because that's pure flavor, and we're going to chop up the meat. I apologize, I didn't show this on camera, but chop it up small. Add your chopped meat back to the sauce. Bring to a simmer, cover with a lid, and simmer for about 2 to 3 hours until the meat is soft. All those flavors meld together. It's just really delicious. Now let's make a bowl of pasta. So boil some spaghetti noodles for about 10 minutes until they're really soft. Add your sauce to a saute pan, bring it to a boil, reduce the heat. Add your cooked spaghetti right back into that pan with some pasta water and butter. Now you want to make sure you finish cooking the spaghetti in the pan. You want to cook it like 85% in the water and then that final 15% in the pan so that starch from the pasta releases into that tomato sauce. Add yourself some parsley, some cheese, turn off the heat, stir, 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 and you're going to see the sauce come together really well with the noodles. And that's exactly what you're looking for. That is a delicious, delicious spaghetti. Oh my goodness, this is so good. Now let's plate it up. So just plate it up in a bowl as you always do. Finish with a little Parmesan cheese, a little bit of parsley, and enjoy. This is super kid friendly. Kids love this, and adults love it too. It's not your typical spaghetti. It's definitely not traditional Italian food, but it is really, really good. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below, and stay tuned for more videos coming soon.